Hi. So for those of you who joined a bit later, Jenny is a serial entrepreneur. She started her first business at 18, and she's most recently launched FitPink, which is an active wear brand. And she's experienced rapid growth in the last over the last 3 years, 4 years. So Jenny, just kind of, you're very welcome joining the conversation today. And as we're talking about sales, it would be great from your background, having, being a serial entrepreneur, having started many businesses. Can you give us a brief intro into your journey, the highs and lows?
Sure, yeah. So I suppose my first kind of business would have been in food. So I had a sandwich production company. I see there's, I think it's Caroline on the call too, that does celiac sandwiches. But we kind of grew that to really, it started as a coffee shop and just grew to a sandwich production facility that had, I think, with 35 full-time staff. And we had revenues of about 3.5 million. And we were doing sandwiches from Donegal down to Kerry 6 days a week. And it was an incredibly intense business. So it was B2B in that we were selling into retailers, and it was B2C in that the end user obviously was the consumer. So that was it was an interesting journey in terms of the sales, how sales worked with that. Very different from kind of B2B sales in that it was, there was rarely a PowerPoint. It was a case of trying to catch a manager in the store with samples and grab 5 minutes of his time. That business grew, but it was always fraught, I suppose, with difficulties and challenges. It was short shelf life food. It was low margin. It was capital intensive. It was labor intensive, and it went into liquidation in the last recession. So after that, I kind of went into digital marketing. So I spent a couple of years with a digital marketing agency doing digital marketing for companies around the Northwest. And that was obviously purely B2B in terms of the sales. After that, I managed New Frontiers in the Northwest in Letterkenny and Sligo. So that was, for anybody that doesn't know, it's a startup accelerator that's delivered by the ATUs and funded by Enterprise Ireland. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with it. Really enjoyed that because it was working with startups and getting exposed to a lot of different sectors and industries and new technologies and concepts. And then, as you said, in 2019, I started FitPink Athleisure. So we're an activewear brand based in Donegal, very much a female brand aimed at women, and very much about functional activewear. That's classics in terms of styles, but very much about the functionality. So our leggings don't slip down, they wash well, they wear well, and they're a high quality product at a kind of a mid-tier price. So that's kind of a bit about our background, my background really to hear.
Thank you. And we did talk about you're on your third business, and you did have Doolittle's, which was, as you said, and the digital marketing, and now FitPink. So it's different what different selling techniques are required for each of your different target audiences?
Yeah, so I suppose with Doolittle's, it was almost no PowerPoints. It was very much you would go into a store, try to catch the manager, which was a job in itself because then they're never there, they're in, they're out. If they see you on a camera from the office, they're not going to come out because you're selling. So that was it was a lot of in the van with our drivers going on delivery routes and going into new shops, handing out samples and then coming back later to follow up. Very much a conversation, as I said, on the shop floor. They would be discussing margin. They were very kind of, particularly in the cities where they're very fast, sort of fast moving consumer goods type situations. It was very much about margin, about returns and about volume. The hurdles we would face, we started selling into Dublin, and while we sold around Donegal and then further into Sligo, Galway, our reputation had gone before us. So people would have been aware of the brand and aware that it's a high quality product. And it was relatively easy to get in the door and to sell, whereas I kind of expected the same kind of a reaction in Dublin, and it was totally different. So you'd go into a shop in Dublin, and this was in, when was it, the kind of late 90s. So you would have, I would say, Jenni from Doolittle's were a sandwich brand from Donegal. And the first question I'd get from a lot of them would be, oh, are they priced in euro or sterling? And it's Donegal, they're priced in euro, but people just couldn't get over the fact that we would be able to deliver a fresh product 6 days a week from Donegal to Dublin to their store. And one of the biggest hurdles we had was them saying, look, the Kerry Group product, which was the incumbent at the time, they're here every morning at 6. There's no way you're going to be able to do that. But we were, and actually, if anything, it really pushed us to make our service levels not just acceptable, but exceptional. And we did, over a number of years, really surprise people in terms of, if they ran out of sandwiches on a rugby weekend in Ballsbridge, we would be there on a Sunday morning if they needed extra. So that's kind of grew. The one I had one experience. We won a number of large contracts over that time. So we won the Aldi contract. So Aldi Ireland at the time was 65 stores nationwide. And that was a huge boost to the business as we grew. We also won the contract for Topaz Energy, which is now Circle K, and that was about 70 stores nationwide. And that one was one that I really learned an awful lot about B2B sales. So this was a huge contract, very important to me that I got it. So I put a lot of time into the preparation. They had, I think, about 70 stores at the time, and I visited myself 35 of them. I actually, around the country, got in a car and actually visited 35 stores over a 6-week period. I would ask the store managers what are their current challenges with sandwiches as a category, and I got loads of feedback. I would take photos and just really get to know store managers, get their names, take their photos. And I put a lot of that into a PowerPoint presentation that I presented to head office. And they were blown away by how much I had learned about their stores, because I found too, in dealing with head offices, there can often be a disconnect between what head office thinks and what's actually going on at store level. So for me to be able to get all of that information and learn so much about their business and things that they didn't know themselves, that won me the contract. So we won that contract from Kerry Group. And that to me was probably one of my most defining kind of sales experiences, was the importance of learning about your customer's business and learning about their challenges and issues with the incumbent product, or even just in their business, and how can your product or solution help with that. And really trying to see things from a customer's perspective, not from mine. So it's more about what are their challenges and how can we help with that. So that was the food business. Then digital marketing was the opposite in terms of it was all PowerPoints, proposals and meetings. It was very different in that I found it very different back then to at times convince SMEs and kind of particularly people with a non-marketing background of the importance of marketing and of the real and measurable benefits of online marketing, because they tended to be very price conscious, and they would, a lot of CEOs at the time and probably still would see marketing as kind of nice to have or a bit of fluff, but not essential, and trying to get across that, well, actually it's not just a bit of fluff. We can deliver meaningful and measurable results from digital marketing, and getting them over that hurdle of, well, why would I do this, put an ad on Facebook when I can get an ad in our local paper for €600 a month? So again, knowing what their challenges are and being able to sort of have a meaningful response. So that was digital marketing. Then onto FitPink, I suppose. It's kind of mostly B2C. 90% of our business is through our website, but we do sell into a number of retail stores. So we would supply Shaw's department stores down in Waterford and Wexford, and a handful of independent sports retailers around the country. So that's very much all about margin. They're very tough in terms of what they need to get out of that. And then selling B2C obviously is from a website, we're e-commerce, and it's digital marketing. What it also is actually is word of mouth, and that is huge, very hard to measure. But my instinct is that it's a huge part of our growth is word of mouth. And email marketing too is another tactic that we use to sell, and it delivers about 30% of our revenue on a monthly basis.
So based on all that experience, Jenny, because you've come through different kind of sales cycles and processes, do you think as a founder it's important for you to head up sales initially?
Oh, definitely. I think that, you know, as a startup, most of us are going into to potential customers or clients with zero credibility. We think we're great and our products are brilliant, but they're looking at us thinking, oh yeah, another startup, 90% chance they're going to fail. You know, why am I going to go to the trouble of changing what I'm already using to something like this? So, you know, through New Frontiers, I would have met a lot of founders that are, well, I'm an engineer. There's no way I'm doing sales. And I would always argue that you are the absolute best person to do your own sales, because even having founder CEO on your email signature is more likely to get you a meeting than having, you know, sales manager on your signature. And you just have, it's the only way you have a bit of credibility is dealing sort of business owner to sort of senior management or business owner. And I think too that with a salesperson, hiring somebody to do your external sales, in my experience over the course of different businesses, you know, you spend about a year paying that salary, paying the expenses, and getting little to no value out of that person. 3 months to a year at a minimum before you're really getting value for that. And then they probably, you know, move jobs or move on and you're back to square one. So, you know, I probably couldn't overstate the importance, I think, of doing your own sales and not getting hung up on, I'm not a salesperson. You know, you just see it as a conversation with another business owner who has similar challenges to yourself, and how your product is able to help them. You know?
Yeah, and on that point as well, I always think it's important as the company grows and expands, you know, where you do bring on sales staff, that as a CEO or the founder, that you know how difficult that process is. And so you know kind of the challenges that your sales team are having, and you're able to help them through that process as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I spoke to, it was actually Harry Hughes, the founder of Port West, who gave me some sort of good advice in terms of selling into new categories or new geographical areas. And he said that they give it 2 years. So whenever they go into a new area, they hire sales reps and you know, get set up, and they give a new area like that 2 years. So I think the importance of time in the sales cycle, as I think Charlene kind of touched on, is a huge thing too. It's giving things time and not stopping too soon. And
the measuring of that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then from your experience, Jenny, you know, how do you think sales and marketing fit together these days? You know, do you think they differ, you know, between selling products and services as well?
I think they do. Yeah, they differ in terms of products and services, or selling B2C to B2B, but I think that marketing almost always should do the groundwork for sales. In terms of, you know, you need to marketing should be growing brand awareness for your product before a sales team goes in, ideally. And then on an ongoing basis after that, assuming you have brand awareness, I think marketing should really underpin sales in terms of new products, you know, new strategies and new communications. So I think they're like hand in glove. They really do. I don't think you can have one without the other. And I think ideally you have strengths in both.
Yeah, it's great to hear you reiterating as well the points that Charlene just made earlier, because for founders that are on the call, it's all about kind of the lessons learned from people who've been there and done it, and to help them to get to where they need to be quicker.
Yeah, I think just one thing too, I've always really believed in, it's a marketing kind of saying that, you know, people, be it B2B or business to consumer, people need 6 to 10 touch points with a new brand before they'll take action. And I absolutely see that day in, day out, where, you know, people see your brand, maybe on social media, then somebody else mentions your brand, then they see it again on social media, then they'll see an ad, and eventually then they'll sort of build up kind of a reference in their mind of your product, and eventually they'll buy. But people rarely buy from an unknown, untrusted brand that they've never heard anything about. So marketing really has such a strong part to play in kind of racking up those touch points with your brand before people are ready to buy.
And then that brings me on to the question that I did ask Charlene earlier. You know, do you like selling? Has it always been that way?
Yeah, so I think I enjoy selling when I intrinsically believe that I'm selling something of value to the customer. So there was a time I set up a business after the sandwich business went into liquidation, and it was a barter website. So it was kind of in recessionary times. I thought businesses could barter their services and their products with each other. And I started selling too soon. So I built the website, and I hadn't fully fleshed out the detail of, well, what happens if a hotel wants to barter a one-night stay for a year's services from an accountant? Like, how do you work out things like the balance between the value of your product and the value of mine? You know, what's the time frame for us to barter when we agree to barter? All those kind of things I hadn't really fleshed out. I just wanted to get selling and get businesses listed on the platform. And that, I think that really showed in my sales interactions with people, that it just wasn't hitting the mark, and I wasn't able to answer their questions that they were coming up with, like that I'm just mentioning now. So I think when I really believe I'm selling something of value, and it's a high quality product that is going to make a difference to someone's lives, then I do enjoy sales.
I suppose that's the important part as well from a founder's perspective, because they are passionate about the products and services that they're selling, and they know it inside out. But
I think too that you know, there's people that are saying, I'm not a salesperson, but really, if you've made it this far and you founded something, you've already sold. So you're either selling to a bank manager to get an overdraft, or you're selling to you know, an investor to get some angel investment. You know, you are selling already. So I think a lot of founders get hung up about sales as a title, where it's not necessarily. If you're a founder, you're selling all the time.
Our new mantra in Awaken Hub is going to be every day is a selling day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Affirmations for them from now on.
Yeah.
No, brilliant, Jenny. And again, like Charlene, would be delighted if you'll stay with us for the Q&A at the end. What we're going to do now is move into the secret